Hello and welcome back to the channel. On today's tutorial I'm going to be sharing with you how to cut and sew this corset with a stylish yoke and also with a puffy sleeve. So if it's your first time viewing my channel, please hit on the subscribe button. Let's dive right into today's video. So now I have marked all my vertical measurement, which includes my shoulder to bust, shoulder to under bust, shoulder to waist, and my basque length. So for the basque length of this dress, I made use of 4 inches. You can go ahead to make use of 5 inches, which is still okay, but you shouldn't exceed that. So the next step is to go ahead to mark the shoulder divided by 2. Now I'm going to mark the shoulder divided by 2 plus half, because this pattern has a sleeve, and I will go down by 1 inch. At this point I'll go ahead to place my ruler and I'm going to draw a straight line. So when we are drafting out this pattern, we are not going to work on the neckline. When we are done, we are going to do so. So I'm going to mark my chest line, which is your bust circumference divided by 6 plus 1.5 inches. From that point, I'll measure what I have on the shoulder line, which is that 7.5 inches, because I want to have a straight line at this point. So I'll go ahead to draw out. And after I'm done drawing that, I'm just going to measure what I have on this point. This is just to have a straight line so that my line will be straight. So after I'm done doing that, I'm going to go ahead and I will rule a straight line. So after I'm done ruling out the straight line, the next thing I'm going to do is to divide my armhole into 2. To divide it, I'll fold my tape, mark, and I'll be coming in by ½ inch at this point. So from this line at my chest line, I'll mark my bust circumference divided by 4, which gives me 8.3 inches. Now I'm going to go ahead to place my French curve touching the bust line, the ½ inch at the center of my armhole, and I'm going to connect it back to the shoulder. So after I'm done doing this, the next thing I'm going to do is to go ahead and I'm going to use my marker to outline my pattern, which is the shoulder part of this pattern and also the armhole of this pattern. So after I'm done outlining, I'm going to mark my nipple to nipple divided by 2. Mine is 7 inches divided by 2. I have 3.5 inches. So I'm just going to go ahead to place this and make a mark at my bust, under bust, waist, and basque length. So after doing that, I'm just going to go ahead to place my ruler and I'm going to connect, drawing a straight line upwards, and I will connect down to my basque length. After I'm done doing this, I'm just going to go ahead and go up by 2 inches. So you can go ahead and use 1.5 inches, which is still okay. Or you can also use your bust radius, that's the distance between your bust and your under bust, and you're going to take it round. So taking my round, mine is almost 2 inches, so that is why I'm using 2 inches. So using 1.5 inches is also okay. So at this point, I will draw a fence line because I'll be using it as a guide. Now I'm going to also mark that nipple to nipple divided by 2 at this point, and I'm going to place my ruler, draw out a straight line. So after I'm done drawing this, what I'm going to do next is to mark my dart intake. So to draw my dart intake, I will be marking 1 inch at my under bust, at the waistline, and at the basque length. For a plus size, go ahead and use 1.5 inches. So a straight dart is easier for a beginner to work with. So that's why I always make use of a straight dart. After that, I'll place my French curve, connect from my bust down to my under bust, and I will repeat this same process at the other part. So now this is what I have, and I'm just going to go ahead to use my marker also to outline my pattern so that it's going to be very visible. So after doing that, I want to draw out my cup. I'll come in by ½ inch at my chest line and go in by half. So you can decide to go up or come down by ½ inches. So at this point, I'll place my French curve and I'm going to mark the bust gauging, which is about 1.25 or 1.2 inches, and I will connect. So at this point, the next step is just to go ahead to mark out what I have at this point. After I'm done marking out, I'll go up and I'll be taking my 1 inch dart at both sides. For a plus size, you can go ahead and make use of 1.5 inches or more, and I'm going to connect for my darts at the upper part. So after I'm done outlining this, I'm just going to place my French curve and connect. You can also make use of a freehand sketch if if that works for you also. So I'll blend in my pattern this way just to make sure I have a straight line at this point, and I'm going to go ahead to connect. Now after doing that, place my French curve and connect. This is a much easier way to draw out your corset without having much issue. So I'm going to go ahead to mark my nipple to nipple divided by 2 plus 1 inch at the side, and I will divide what I have here into 2 and mark. Now I'll place my French curve and I'm going to connect. So make sure you connect from that line that you marked, and this is what I have at this point. So if you notice, this corset pattern is actually very easy, but if you have any issue on it, please leave your question at the comment section. And at this point, if you haven't yet subscribed, please hit on the subscribe button, and don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. So I'll go ahead to use my marker to outline all my pattern, and this is what I have, as simple as that. Now go ahead to label your pattern as 1 and 2. So after I'm done doing this, we're going to work on the neckline later, and I'll mark my body circumference. At the bust, I'm going to mark the bust circumference divided by 4. Replace the 2 inches that we have on top at this point. So I'm just going to go ahead to mark the 2 inches that intake and add my sewing allowance. Extend my chest line and connect to the bust. Mark my under bust divided by 4. Measure the dart intake, replace it, and I'm going to add my sewing allowance. At the waistline, I'll mark my waist circumference divided by 4, replace the 2 inches that we took out, and mark my sewing allowance. So from this point, I'm going to connect from my waistline to the bust, under bust, from the under bust to the bust line, and whatever I have at the waistline, I'll come in by my sewing allowance, so that the measurement I have at the back and the measurement I have in front will align at the waist, because we are not making use of a bust dart for this particular pattern. So now you want to go ahead to draw out the basque waistline at this point. So I'll place my French curve and I'm going to connect. If you don't have a French curve, you can go ahead to make use of your freehand sketch. You'll still be achieving the same results. So I'll go ahead and I will outline my pattern. So while outlining my pattern, you will notice that this point is equal to this, so that I don't get to start blending my pattern. So after this, we're going to go ahead to work on the yoke of this particular pattern. So to do that, I'm going to mark the standard neckline of 3 inches. So after marking that, I'm going to go ahead to place my ruler and connect down to the lower part of the dress. So next, I'll go ahead and measure what I have on the shoulder, which is about 4.5 inches. I'll mark 2 inches, place my tape and come down by 2.5, and from there I'm going to extend it down this way. So from this point, I'll measure about 2.5. This is not constant, just use whatever that you feel is okay for you. So now I'll go ahead to connect it. So with this, we have achieved this neckline, and what I'm going to do next is just to go ahead to outline this, and we are going to go ahead to cut our pattern for the front. So while cutting, I'm just going to go ahead to cut out the shape of the dress that I have, and after cutting that, I'll go ahead to cut out the necessary part of this dress. So at the yoke part, you want to get rid of the bulginess, so I'll go ahead to mark out these points. So from here, I'll go ahead to cut out my pattern. So at this point, if you find this tutorial very interesting and educative, please don't forget to hit on the subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and also join us in the sewing video of this particular pattern. And if you're a returning subscriber, thank you for subscribing. So this is my pattern after I'm done cutting out. Moving over to the back, I have marked out all the basic measurements we need, just like the front. The only difference is that I have a zipper allowance in front of 2 inches, and at the lower part I did not add a basque, so the back length stopped at the waistline. That's why we went in by our sewing allowance in front. So now I'll mark my neckline of 3 inches just like we did for the front, and I'm going to go down by 2.5 inches. So sorry, 2 inches. And I'll go ahead to draw out the neckline for the back pattern. So after I'm done drawing this out, so this is it, and the next step we're going to work on now is to go ahead to mark our dart intake for this pattern. But first, extend your neckline, in your shoulder line at the back this way. So now I'm going to mark my nipple to nipple divided by 2, and I will start from my zipper allowance. This is just to mark my dart, and I'll go ahead to place my French curve, and I'm going to rule out a straight line. I'm going to mark 1/2 inch on both sides, and I will go ahead to extend it upwards this way. After I'm done doing that, I'm going to start inserting all my measurements, and I'll start from the zipper allowance. So I'll place my tape starting from the zipper allowance, and I'll mark my bust circumference divided by 4, mark my sewing allowance since there's no dart at that point, mark my under bust circumference, measure the dart intake, and also go ahead to mark my sewing allowance. Going down to the waistline, I'll mark the waist circumference divided by 4, measure the dart intake and replace it because we're going to be blending it out, and mark my sewing allowance. Now I'll connect from my waist to my under bust and down to the bust line and chest line. So this is what I have at the back pattern. Now I'm going to mark 1 inch, and I'm going to be connecting from that point down to the center of my dress this way, and I'll connect. Now I'm going to be getting rid of the bulginess of this dress at the back, and I'll go ahead to outline my chest line. So this is where my the lower back of my dress is going to start. So just like I said, I marked out the bulginess at the back of the dress. So when I was recording, my camera didn't show that, and also I took out 0.25 at the yoke part also to avoid gaping at my yoke. So for the sleeve part of this dress, we'll be cutting it out in our sewing video. And at this point, if you haven't yet subscribed, please hit on the subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, leave your comments at the comment section if you have any question regarding this video, and join us in our next video where we'll be sewing this particular dress. Thanks. So after cutting, this is what I have.